Welcome to episode 40 of the Tri-State Hockey Podcast presented by Bet365. I'm Jonny Lazarus. That's Arthur Staple and Mike Rupp. I'm not doing the thing anymore. It's too much. We're changing it up. It's 40 episodes. I don't think everyone needs to know that you're a longtime NHL reporter, Arthur, and Mike Rupp, you're a Stanley Cup champion, even though those things should never go away. I don't know. Actually, I hated that I just said that, but we're just going to roll with it. Maybe I should have just stuck with the intro. I'm like,
you just go back to it. Go back to it next time.
Welcome to episode 40 of the whatever. I'm literally running on like 2 hours of sleep. Took the red eye last night from Vegas after that double overtime game. So sorry, guys, if my brain's a little fried, but it's great to see you guys. Great to be back with you. And we got a lot to talk about because all three teams, I think, have made a little bit of news here. The Islanders get the win under Pete DeBoer in his first game. The New York Rangers, again, I think the young kids continue to flourish. Lafreniere, big game. He's the one that everyone's kind of clamoring on to now at the end of the season. And then with the Devils, we're going to talk about this hunt for a new GM and what's going to happen with Sheldon Keefe. So all three teams in the mix this week, but we got to start New York Islanders. Big win yesterday, and I do think we have a voicemail to kick us off on today's show. So, Vic, why don't you cue that up for us if you can?
What's up, fellas? I had the pleasure of being at that game last night, Pete DeBoer's first game. Tell you guys some things I saw while I was there. First of all, the urgency they came out with in that first period was incredible. They were peppering shots nonstop. That shot diff in the first period, 24-3, I think, was the highest of any game this season. Single period shot diff. The power play was buzzing. They actually entered the zone with more than one guy going at full speed, which was nice. And just everybody all around was working their asses off. Also, biggest thing I noticed was Tony D's presence on the ice. That guy is a godsend for us. We need him so bad. Our D is not up to stuff without him, as you can see these past couple games when he was hurt. The future is bright for this team, and I hope that we get some luck in the standings so that we can make it into the playoffs, because I feel like we could really do some damage. All right, boys. Love the pod. See ya.
Last week, this team's not good. Now the future is bright. Thanks for the call, Rob. Appreciate it. Arthur, you started off.
Well, considering all the places Tony D has been, it's nice to hear some fans appreciating him for what he does. And his absence the last couple of weeks kind of coincided with their meltdown. And he's not the most diligent guy in his own end, but he does get the puck out of the zone and get it moving up the ice. And there was a noticeable difference in that last night. Also noticeable difference in the quality of the opponent, too. We do have to point that out. The Leafs are not necessarily itching to head in the right direction here with a few games left, but we'll leave that for another time. So Islanders needed the 2 points. They got it. They came out with some determination, putting a lot of pucks on net, putting a lot of bodies up towards the net. Power play was good. So, yeah, it's I don't know if I fully saw the Peter DeBoer system in full effect there, and really, they did give up a couple of scary ones to the Leafs there, especially in the first couple of periods where the game was tied and it probably shouldn't have been. But yeah, you expect a team like that's been pretty good all year and stumbled in the last few weeks to react in a positive way to such a big move, coaching change at such a crucial time of the year. So that part was good to see. And yeah, like I said, 3 games left now. Everybody lost last night that needed to lose. Philly, Columbus,
Ottawa won though. Yeah.
I think it's third place in the Metro or nothing. And I kind of felt that way even a couple of weeks ago that seemed like the surest path to them getting a playoff spot before they lost all the games last week. And now it seems like, because they do own the tiebreaker over Philly, Philly looked bad last night in Detroit. So I think, Ottawa looks too good. And unfortunately, it's Ottawa that's coming into play tomorrow afternoon. So the Islanders are going to have to up their game. And Ilya Sorokin, we haven't said this all year, Ilya Sorokin needs to up his game again an awful lot, because I thought he was a little shaky last night. But he's certainly been able to bounce back from any bad games he's had this year. And if they can pull that one off, and Philly's in Winnipeg tomorrow night, all of a sudden, after a week that was one of the most down weeks the Islanders have had all season, maybe the most down week they've had. Suddenly they could see themselves in control of their own destiny with 2 points tomorrow and a Philly loss in Winnipeg. So it's amazing how fortunes can turn around, and still I think the fact that everybody's excited about what Peter DeBoer is bringing, keep that energy up, and it's interesting to see if he's going to make any tweaks or kind of short-term moves with the lineup with these 3 games to go, especially a 3 and 4 to close the season out at home. But yeah, good first game, good first impression. Good to see the guys on this team get their confidence back, and they're going to need it here for the stretch run.
I love the DeAngelo, the Tony D thing you mentioned there too, and I just go back to the other day I heard that, or I read that kind of quote by Steph Rosner where he quoted Matt Barzal talking about Tony D, saying honestly he's one of the, if not best, pure puck movers I've ever played with on the back end. So I mean, does he have flaws defensively? Absolutely, but you need guys to connect the dots with the forwards, and you got probably the most talented forward in Matt Barzal, who recognizes that. So having Tony back, I think, makes a huge difference. I mean, it makes it really interesting. I agree with you. I think the crosshairs probably, I mean, you're worrying about yourself and you're worrying about what you guys bring to the table, but crosshairs got to be on Philly, right? That's where you kind of find or would assume is their best path to get in. But an outright win tomorrow against Ottawa, all of a sudden that avenue's opened up again a little bit. So, but that tiebreaker that they have on Philly can certainly help them. So, it's wild. I mean, I've gone from would have said this team was guaranteed to be in not that long ago to, oh no, they're in trouble, to, oh, they're good. And I would have buried them a couple days ago. We said how bad that one game or that one night this week when they were idle was. And last night, here we are. They're right back in this hunt here.
It would be a shame, though, if that one game that you mentioned, Rupper, that game against Philly, right? Like, that's the team they're chasing. That game was a huge game. If that's the game that keeps them out, that's going to suck. And was that the game? No, Waugh got fired the next night after Carolina, right?
Yeah.
That was the first night. Carolina was the next night. But one guy I really wanted to ask about who, had a pretty decent game. And again, I just saw the highlights, so I can't speak to, how he played the entire 60 minutes. I was at the Frozen Four, so I couldn't, I had the game actually on my screen while I was watching North Dakota and Wisconsin, but you can't pay full attention. But Cal Ritchie, him being on that second line, playing the wing, I think for the most part of the season, Arthur, we had talked about him being like that third line. I think Pajot was maybe out for a bit, and we were talking about him in the third line center role. But do you like him in that spot alongside Schenn and with Barzal in the middle? Because, you've heard the comments from Barzal over the past week with DeBoer about how the middle of the ice is like where his heart is. We talked about it on Morning Cup of Hockey, but I really want to focus on Cal Ritchie and this spot that he's in right now.
Yeah, I think Cal Ritchie is going to be a center in this league for a long time. I don't know if now is that time. And you look at, when they make, and we talked about it here, when they make that Braden Schenn acquisition and they extend JG Pajot, you are locking in your top 4 centers, really. Horvat, Schenn, Pajot, Casey Cizikas. That looks like the group. Now, obviously, Peter DeBoer comes in, tweaks it a little bit. Schenn moves to the wing, but Schenn's not moving the wing so that Cal Ritchie can slide in there necessarily. He's moving the wing so Matthew Barzal, who's been an effective center, moves in. So you've got essentially 5 guys who are veteran guys who are in the middle ahead of Cal Ritchie. So Cal Ritchie, his hockey IQ has been one of the things since even he was in junior that people have lauded about his game. He's kind of a guy who, even at that age, at 17, 18, was a guy could fill whatever gap you needed, in his junior career. And I think just seeing him and seeing how smart he is, you see how quickly, really, his offensively, his best spot all season long has been kind of in that, kind of adjacent bumper spot or sort of net front spot on the power play, where we've seen him, get the puck off his stick really quick. He got a lucky one last night, but really alert play to just kind of bang that one back in after the failed clear kind of hit the back of a Leafs PKer and landed right at his feet. And he was right there to just bang it in as opposed to try to distribute. But he had that really nice little cross crease pass to Schenn for the first goal when they were on a delayed penalty. So it was essentially a power play. And you really like how adaptive he is to his roles. You know, it's taken a little while. I think he struggled kind of in the middle part of the season, maybe because he didn't know, is he a center, is he a wing? And I imagine that over the summer and into training camp, Peter DeBoer is going to have more of a plan for him. But if it looks like this, if he's either on the left or the right second line, he's at 30 points now and 22 points in his last 34 games. You can see him as a 50, 60 point guy, especially if he's going to play with guys like Schenn, like Barzal, where you have the puck on your stick or in a good shooting spot because Barzal is such a good distributor, or Braden Schenn's up to, 6, 7 goals now, 6, I think, since the trade. And so, it's just nice to see you've got and I think without switching positions, Simon Holmstrom is kind of a similar one. That the fact that they're 2 under 25 forwards that are their mainstays in the top 9 are guys that kill penalties, that take faceoffs, that do a little bit of everything is really cool. I think it's going to help them a lot. And if the veteran composition changes because Matthew Darche wants to bring in some different looks, you've got 2 guys that you can plug in almost anywhere, mostly on the wing where I think they have a lot of need. And I can see Ritchie fitting in that spot, working on that in the off season, because like I said, he's still young. He's 21 years old, but he's played a lot of different roles before and played them well. So I'm interested to see what he can do going forward, because these last few months have been really, really good and really promising.
So, good thing or bad thing here, and Repper, I'll kick it over to you, but just looking at some numbers, over the last 3 weeks since March 23rd, the Islanders' leading point scorers, number 1, Cal Ritchie, 21-year-old, and number 2, Matthew Schaefer, 18-year-old. Biggest moments of the year. The guys leading the way are the 20, the 2 youngest guys. Like, while that's great, it's also like, we talk about this veteran group, and the guys who have the experience. Like, is that a negative? I don't know. I mean, like, to me, it's like, wow, the Islanders in this point of the season, if you would have told me that over the last 8 games, those 2 would be leading the way, it's like, oh, fuck, like, maybe that's a problem.
No, I mean, I don't think it's a problem because of where they play in the lineup too. So like if it's a 4th liner, that to me it's great because you're getting depth scoring, but that's where it's a problem, because they're not putting those situations where, all right, we've got to get someone in the upper part of our lineup doing it, whether it's on the back end or up front as forward. So, I think as long as you're getting that from the slotted parts of the lineup where you're hoping to get offense from in a deep pair 1 or a top 6, then it doesn't matter who it comes from. It's just talking about Cal Ritchie though, and Arthur, you kind of brought it up. Like, the one thing that's really impressed me this year watching him is he's really good and effective in these tight areas around the net where you've seen him at times off the one post. Sometimes he migrates over there on the power play on like below the left circle, and he's really good at just creating and making plays. And he's great in that bumper position too, where he gets in there and get a shot off real quick. I find that really interesting. Like his small ice game is really, really good. So what that to me is, and that's why it's really important for this team for various reasons to make the playoffs. That's playoff hockey. So I'd love to see how his game would translate in the playoffs. And then you mentioned like a Schenn. It's just a nice option for Pete DeBoer to have here, where you can go Ritchie wing center, you can go Schenn wing center, you can move some pieces around. Having flexibility this time of year is gigantic. And so I think that the teams that have many options of who can play center ice and move them to wing, that is a big time advantage over some other teams. So, part of the whole process in this team right now, you clearly want to win. You clearly want to get in the playoffs. Inside that room, they're not looking at it this way. But for me, it's a double-edged sword. Like, if they can get in, what valuable experience. Like when Matthew Schaefer was drafted 1st overall, I don't think anybody really thought that he'd be getting playoff experience in year 1. And
nobody did.
No, and even when
that in the O.
Yeah, right, exactly. And even when the Brock Nelson deal goes down and got Cal Ritchie, like, all right, well, I want to see what he does in the playoffs. How does he look in the playoffs here? We've got an opportunity of seeing that. So, I mean, the stuff, if they could just even get in, and I know, again, inside that room, if you get in, you're not thinking of it this way, but just in management, I think you're sitting there like the experience that these kids can get in those roles right now, man, that'll serve them well next year and in the rest of their career, quite frankly.
I will say I'll throw in one other guy that I thought looked a little different, and I think Peter DeBoer talked about him too, was Max Shabanov, who's a guy who had some injury issues this year, but really, if there was a personnel thing that you could ding Patrick Waugh for, it seemed like guys would get in his doghouse and it was hard for them to get out over the last couple of years. Anthony Duclair really hasn't, even though he had that hot streak when he came back into the lineup after a couple of healthy scratches, he kind of ended up falling out again. And Shabanov never, he was on the fourth line. He never really kind of worked into a top 9 role where a guy with that skill set needs to be. And he's been back in and he's done okay. And obviously the rest of the team, it doesn't really matter the individual stats the last couple of weeks. They just haven't been good as a team. But I thought last night, watching some of it back and watching some of his shifts, he seemed to get a little jolt from kind of this new coach, and maybe there's a conversation or two that was had that kind of renewed his excitement. He's a guy who signed a 1-year deal out of the KHL as a free agent. You don't really know where it's going to go. Max Siplikov was that guy last year. He had a decent first year, and then this year, his second year, he kind of went into witness protection and ended up going to Jersey in the Palat deal. And who knows what's going to happen with him after that. But Shabanov to me was a guy who looked kind of reinvigorated last night. I'm curious to see if he'll stick in the lineup and then what that means for him going forward. Is he a guy that's going to re-up here? Does he want to still be a part of it even after what was mostly a disappointing first year in North America? So that was kind of a little, eyebrow raise and maybe something that could be a positive going forward too.
Mm-hmm. And here's, maybe it's stupid, but like, if let's say the Islanders don't get in, right? Fans, we know how they are in New York. They're harsh. Like if the Islanders come out and have a bad first period on Saturday, which is obviously last night was a big game, but Saturday going up against a much different opponent, an opponent trying to clinch the playoffs, different scenario, different situation. Like, do the fans now have to kind of give the players a little bit of a break because they have to adjust to a new coach? Like, how does that dynamic work? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do the players have some sort of excuse built in right now, or is that not even the case?
No, it's not the case. I mean, the other part to it too is the coaching staff. Pete DeBoer has been around a long time. Like, you've got to give them, like, we're not going to see, even say this team gets in the playoffs and goes, say they go on a little bit of a run, they make it a couple rounds. We're not going to see full implemented Pete DeBoer. It's his job to only give them what they could take on right now. And you don't want your players to be second guessing, to be thinking, where should I be here? Where's our, where am I? Just that delayed reaction for a second. You get any of that, you're toast, man. You're done. You've already lost. So Pete DeBoer's job is to come in here, tweak a couple things, reinvigorate some players like we talked about. Maybe it's a fresh start. Maybe it's just breathing a breath of fresh air and belief in some of these players that maybe lost that. Those are all things that you're looking at right now, but you're not going to see what Pete DeBoer wants to implement as far as D systems, that stuff. Like, that's training camp. Work on that next year, and that stuff we're going to see down the road. So, I think his job and any coach's job in this situation is to come in here, give them is just enough that they can handle, not too much.
And I'll also say, as far as the fans go, the fans are the fans. They've been invested all year long. And I've seen a few things online where people are saying, like, and these are probably people that don't watch the Islanders all the time, when they were in their free fall, people saying like, oh, this was a no expectations year. So, don't be too upset if they miss the playoffs. Like, fuck that. Of course you'll be upset. The fans are invested every year. And this year had such good feeling to it. Such promise out of nowhere with Schaefer and Sorokin's good year and Darsh in his first year. Of course it's going to be disappointing. So even if they look like they're going to pull things together going forward, and you've got the best free agent coach out there, and you've got, the Calder Trophy winning defenseman and a Vezina finalist in all likelihood in Sorokin, you could, people are still going to be pissed, and they have every right to be, because you've invested a lot of time. A lot of people invested a lot of money, and you felt like for 90% of this season, you were thinking, all right, I'm going to get to see some Islanders playoff hockey. And in the last couple of weeks, it's kind of fallen apart. So if they can't pull it back together, that's going to be rightly disappointing. And I'll follow it up, Johnny, with a question about the fans. Will you be at UBS tomorrow? And can you tell us where you'll be sitting so the fans can come and abuse you for being there?
I will never tell where I'm sitting because I have someone who's threatening to kill me basically every day right now. But I am working on getting there. It's a big game. Like, I'm here. It's a Saturday afternoon, 1:00, Ottawa, with a chance to, really solidify their playoff chances. And the Islanders, if they win, it's huge. So I want to get the post-game reaction. I want to hear what the players have to say. And obviously with Pete DeBoer now being here, I'm curious what the Islanders have to say. But speaking of that, Arthur, I do want to shout out our friend, Stefan Rosner. He did just put out an article. And I clicked on it and I read one quick thing about, one of the clear differences that DeBoer maybe made yesterday or a message that he preached, which Stefan spoke to Matt Barzal about. And that was possession through the neutral zone versus, having your stick out on the ice for a redirection to dump it in and go get it. And I'd love to read what Matt Barzal just said about this specific tweak. So Barzal said, possession through the neutral zone is huge. Obviously, I think it's okay to dump it in as long as it's a smart dump so you have speed on the puck and support so you can get back. But I think that getting our weak side defenseman involved, having him join the rush, is going to help our winger push out to thread on a breakaway so that it pushes their D back, which allows us to come up with a speed advantage with their D men backing up. So, yeah, he's got some good ideas. I guess that's like the big thing with DeBoer is possessing through the middle of the ice in the neutral zone so that you hit that second wave of offense. That's how I learned about it, the second wave, right? Like the puck carrier, goes in wide, pulls up, then everyone on the opposition is, they're on their heels, they're back, and then your defensemen are joining in that second layer, and then they're coming and attacking with speed. That's like, what I learned in college. Honestly, I didn't learn that till I got to college, but I guess that's a big part of DeBoer's game plan. And you can, that's Matt Barzal hockey right there, right? Barzal.
I was going to say that. What a coincidence that is exactly what Matt Barzal does best.
I saw you smiling.
Maybe
too.
There was some other stuff in there, and it was kind of like the Peanuts teacher here, wah wah wah, and then that part was the only part that got through to Matt. He's like,
his way crystal clear.
He was like, shit, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, but you think about the second layer, you think Schaefer, you think DeAngelo. Those two guys, they thrive in that.
Yeah, the difference is, I think, with Schaefer on the ice is he's the guy doing the carrying into the zone. So, whatever. Peter DeBoer is a lot smarter than the three of us put together about coaching systems and styles. So I'm sure that this is probably
you got future GM over here. He's not smart.
I'm not saying he's going to be a future coach. I fully endorse Rupper for GM. That's going to be my next banner back here.
Yeah.
But when it comes to coaching styles and systems, I imagine Peter DeBoer is going to have a lot more to say and do with this team than that. Like Rupper said, that's a 101 version of what he's going to bring. Come training camp next time. So good for them that they're embracing it, and I hope it works. And good that a guy like Matt Barzal feels like a big part of it, because, like we said, that is Matt Barzal hockey, like you said, Johnny.
Mm-hmm. Last thing in regards to the Islanders, I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to read it. I did just want to shout out Meredith Turritz of Front Office Sports. She put out a great article about Matthew Schaefer, and I think honestly the first line, and we are guilty of this, kind of was just like, I don't know, maybe like just it kind of clicked with me a little bit. And the way Meredith opened it up was just saying, Matthew Schaefer doesn't want to be the story. The problem for the rookie defenseman is that he always is. And even if the Islanders do get in the playoffs, what are we going to be talking about? How did Matthew Schaefer look playing playoff hockey? Matthew Schaefer. Schaefer couldn't generate. The Islanders, they lose, right? Like, it's kind of like, I feel like that's what it's come to. But is that just going to be the case for his entire career? Because it seems like it might be.
Did it scare the shit out of you guys like it did me when he left last night for a second? I'm like, leaves the game. I'm like, Jesus, are you kidding me right now? Like, we can't.
He got it like right here, right? Collarbone.
Yeah.
Was that where he got it?
Yeah. So it was great seeing him come back. Yeah, great seeing him come back in. And but yeah, I mean, get used to it. It's just like, listen, man, the way his on ice does the talking, his personality, like he is one of the most marketable guys in hockey right now. So even if it's on ice or off ice, he's going to be the center of a lot of different things. So there's no reason. He's got a great head on his shoulders, which makes me believe he's got a great camp around him, whether it's family and friends and the way the Islanders handle him. But man, this is I'm intrigued. You sent that right before we kind of got going here.
Yeah.
I read like the first paragraph. As soon as we're done here, I want to read it just because of that tease right there, even at the beginning. So this kid's intriguing to me. He's intriguing. He's unlike anything that I've experienced. I think watching the game as a young kid like this, from the record he set or what he did last night with his 23rd goal, but it goes way, way, way beyond that. So I want to check that one out for sure. Thank you for sending along. Hopefully everybody else will watch as well. But this is his new life now. Like Matthew Schaefer is going to have to take on a lot, and so far it looks like he's the perfect guy for that.
Arthur, you gotta have something. No, nothing.
No, I got nothing.
Nothing.
I'm ready to talk about your shit ass Rangers here for a little bit. Let's go.
All right, let's talk some shit ass Rangers. I think we do.
I'm kidding.
What? No, it's okay. Do we have a Rangers voicemail? I think we did, right, Vic? If we can cue that up to start the conversation there.
Hey guys, Kaylee from Long Island. Your guys' talk about JT Miller last episode got me thinking kind of how out of hand the criticism for him has gotten. I think a lot of the anger towards him kind of stems from just the trade itself. I think at the time, fans were calling for a complete teardown, totally gut the core, start fresh, and I think bringing in JT kind of solidified that that's not going to happen. And I think a lot of fans' anger maybe towards the general manager was then more directed at JT Miller. And I think, too, a lot of fans were so angry that he was playing through injury this year. I mean, do I think he should have been playing as much as he did this year? Probably not. But I don't think it's a reason to question a guy's captaincy. We don't know what goes on in that locker room. We don't know how the players feel about him. And I would think if they didn't like him, he wouldn't be captain. If they didn't respect him as a leader, he wouldn't be captain. So I think, too, it's ignorant to judge a guy's captaincy based off of one season, especially a season like this where they're bottom of the league, and they've kind of been gutted of all the talent on the team. I think it's kind of crazy to judge him off of a season like this. So, yeah, no question. Just I feel like the hate for him has gotten way out of hand, and we can't judge it completely in a season like this.
Fair point from Kaylee. And I will say, and Rupper, maybe you could speak more to this. Like, it's funny because Jacob Trouba got the same kind of hate that JT Miller's getting, and Jacob Trouba's team won the President's Trophy and went to the Eastern Conference Final. So, like, you're going to get it in New York, I think, whether it's a great year or a bad year. And that's the one thing I've learned, I guess, since I've been in the press box. But a deeper conversation, when the guys are playing hurt, I think there is a mix of fans who say, like, if this guy is going to be a liability, why the fuck is he playing? But in the player's perspective, Rupper, which you could probably bring us into, especially in the Olympic year, and JT wants to play for Team USA, it's you are going to do whatever you can to get out there. So how do you draw that balance and take us in the player's mind? Like, if you feel like you can go out there, even at 60%, you're going to do it. Are you not?
Yeah, I mean, he's a throwback in the way that you play. If you can physically get out there, you go. And it doesn't matter if you're at 60%, 70%. I mean, I think you got to have some transparency with your coaching staff on what you can and cannot do. But I even think from a standpoint, and you're right, that's a bit of an X factor this year. I think you look across the board for a lot of teams. You had players that were dealing with injuries that were not going to come out of the lineup because they wanted to make whatever Olympic roster for their respective countries. So it's this year was a little different in that regard. But I will also say the fact that the Olympics have been long gone now, the fact that this team has been out of the playoffs for quite some time, even before they were officially eliminated, can we give them some credit for playing right now? You know what I mean? Like you can go across the board. A lot of guys. I think Matthew.
I'm playing well. Playing well too.
Yeah,
right
yeah, it's probably the best we've seen him play this year. And I date back to let's let's hold off and let's let this breathe a little bit and see how next year comes and goes. I mean, when the trade went down, he was over a point a game. I think he was like 35 points in 32 games or right around there. He's about a point a game. This year he's been banged up and it's been a rough year. And the one thing I've learned, and it's really, 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 really hard to have a good year when everything around you is bad. Like you very rarely do you see guys that are like up to their standard or what the expectation are when this is a bad team this year. They have been a bad team. So it's hard to really evaluate where everybody is kind of at. Now, does that go like our last conversation was sometimes the way his body language is? Sometimes, he says things and it's refreshing at times where he is transparent in his post game, but sometimes he says things I think that people take the wrong way. And I think that's part of being a captain in the New York Rangers. I'm holding off a little bit on JT. I want to see him healthy. This is a player that I don't think cost this organization all that much for that trade. So I'm going to hold off a little bit. I agree with the call and Kaylee. Like, I think he's getting a little bit too much criticism for me, at least.
Arthur, what do you think?
I mean, he's got 51 points in 65 games. It's not been a total disaster. The dash 28 plus minus, which I know is a dumb stat, but that's not great. But whatever. I think we're seeing him healthy now, which makes a big difference. And it's a learning curve. To have a guy like him, and he's on the other side of 30, so you'd expect a guy who's been in the league for a long time. All right, well, he knows how to carry himself. He knows how to speak to the media. He knows how to do all these things. Never been a captain before. He's never been kind of the team spokesman before. And as Rupper points out, when things are bad, you as the captain feel like you got to be out there after every horrible loss answering the questions. And that takes work. That takes practice. Some of the things that he says probably he'd like to have back, just like some of the games he'd like to have back. And just like in hindsight, he probably would have said, maybe we would have shut me down for a month early in the season. But you think about, he got hurt right before the season started. Vincent Trocheck went out, whatever it was, 2 weeks later. Adam Fox went out soon after that. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like, you compliment the guy because he said, I'm not coming out of the lineup because we're missing a couple of our key guys and you need me here. And it's my first season as a captain. I'm not going to sit out. But then it just snowballs where he's not as effective as he needs to be. The body language isn't great. He's feeling like, I'm sure, like the weight of the world is on his shoulders. And it sometimes comes out in ways that maybe are not intended. So, I mean, if this was a season where the Rangers were where the Islanders were and they're going to miss by a point, then you say, okay, maybe I have some frustration with this guy because he didn't quite handle it the right way. This was a team this season was basically doomed from the start. And everybody can take this as a learning situation, especially him, and he'll come back next year. And if he's if he's scoring at this pace, he's a 70, 75 point guy. He's a surefire power play guy to be part of that. Whatever they do with Vincent Trocheck, he could end up being their second line center, kill penalties, do the whole thing. So, you don't get a do-over. And obviously, when we talk about the criticism that Rangers captains have faced over the years, to me, that call's coming from inside the house, whether it's Ryan Callahan or Ryan McDonough or Jacob Trouba. These guys, the fans, and the media didn't trade these guys. The Rangers did. So, I feel like some of the pressure that comes on these guys is not exclusively from fans. It's from above too. The people that put the C on their sweaters say, okay, we named you captain, you got to perform. So I'm sure that factors into it for him too. So, this is a wash for a season, but yeah, go ahead, Rupper.
No, just the one thing I wanted to add while you're saying that, it's like, not to pivot this over to New Jersey, but we talked about Jack Hughes last week and maybe what that Olympic experience did for him and how he's changed. We can't just use that for him. Like these other guys could have been changed also. So let's wait and see what leadership qualities he experienced seeing there. I mean, these guys, a lot of these players, and the one thing I will say, I've said this before, as far as that U.S. developmental program. It develops great hockey players in the National Hockey League. The one thing that it kind of, I don't want to say it bothers me, I have concern about, is that going through that program, you don't play for championships. You don't get to learn the grind of what it takes. And when you look at JT, and correct me if I'm wrong, looking at this, like, I don't know where that last championship came for him, dating back from that national team program through the OHL, didn't win one there. I don't believe in the American Hockey League didn't, the National Hockey League did not. So, like, this is, we know that he, at his best, is a point a game guy. He should be, at least that, I think. And he's got a little piss and vinegar in him. And maybe him and Vinny Trocheck and these guys experienced something like Jack Hughes did and everybody else did, that they're bringing it back to their respective squads. So, I still think that this team's he could be a great captain. He's got to be better next year. I'm not giving him a free pass, but we'll see what the Olympics does for him long term.
2013 World Juniors would be the last thing that JT Miller has won.
Okay.
Just from a quick, check of his elite prospects and search, I don't see any other thing that stands out as him winning. But yeah, like that's the thing too, right? Because you can't give him a free pass. You just can't. In New York, that just doesn't exist. But I also think he spent a majority on the year, and granted, he did it a little bit last year when he got traded over here, playing on the wing. And as of late, he's been playing center between Sherry and Cartier. And Connor Sherry, I mean, he's played pretty damn good down the stretch too. I think he scored more. Yeah, he scored more goals in the last 2 weeks than he did in the whole. What's going to happen. It's inevitable.
Ranger fans.
You see that these pros, these guys who are in their 30s, who are free agents, hey man, they got families to feed. They know what's up. So
I don't, but I don't mind. Like, I wouldn't be mad at a third line. Like right now, they're slotted as the quote unquote second line, but a third line of JT Miller, Cartier, and Connor Sherry, like next year, that doesn't bother me. Like I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. It's the second line that they really need to figure out, because or whatever, we can talk about the Rangers lineup, but as much as I love Will Cooley, you're a much better hockey team with Cooley playing in your third line. And as much 100%. As I love Johnny Brodzinski, you're a much better team with Johnny Brodzinski as a 13th forward. Like that's where Sikora and Hamelash, like those guys, and Laba, are those guys true fourth liners? Like is JT Miller, Cartier, and Sherry even like your fourth? Like there's a lot of figuring out in the bottom six, because there's a lot to choose from, but there's not nearly enough talent for your top six in the Rangers. And that's the biggest problem right now. Like outside of Mika, Gabe, and Lafreniere, it's hard to even call Vinny, a true top six guy right now at this point of his career. Like I think he's a good third line center for like a competitive team. If he's a second line center on a team, are they cup contenders? I don't know. It's one of those things, right? Where like, didn't we say this when we thought Vinny was getting traded? Like Vinny is a great, like, what was the exact quote? It was like, if Trocheck's your third line center, you are a great team. And if he's your second line center, you're a good team. Like there was something that we said when we thought he's getting traded, but this is my Vegas brain that's kicking in now. But you guys get what I'm saying, right? Before, just someone shut me up. Please shut me up.
Yeah. No. Hey, I
just
like
say
this because this is taken away from me trying to figure out regulation losses. Like, so it's for my Thunder. Keep going, Johnny. No,
the Rangers' second line is their biggest hole right now.
I believe you can have a good team, a contending team can have Vinny Trocheck as your second line. I do believe that. I think it depends what your first line center's doing.
Yeah,
that would fall on me. and then I think you can operate with like a second and third line center not being all that much different from each other, and they got to have some offensive upside, which Vinny does. But you can certainly have that. I think. I don't think it has to be like your prototypical, 2C. Like I don't think you need that as long as he's got other attributes, and Vinny provides those things. So I got what you're saying. I wanted to see you squirm a little bit with that. So
I was fully squirming, literally.
I
thought you guys were going to say a word and just let me keep rambling and rambling.
We should have sat there arguing and be like, no, I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what you're saying.
I was like a mile away anyway, just thinking like, what is he talking about? But I think JT can be your second line center on a decent team. They need better wingers. Yeah. But if you trade Trocheck and you go down the middle, Zibanejad, JT, Laba, and then whoever on the fourth line. I think you can win with that lineup. The middle six wingers have to be a little bit more solid, but if it's Cooley, JT, and I don't know, throw a decent middle top six guy who's not quite a top line guy out there. I mean, I don't think you'd spend $10 million to make Alex Tuck your second line right wing, but if there's somebody a tier below that, I think you can win with that, because I think JT at his best does enough different things for you. He's a bit of a Swiss Army knife there. He's not going to be your 100-point guy like he was in Van. I think those days are over. But I think he can be effective, and I think Noah Laba is a really good third line center. I think if you got a couple of the kids on that third line, Melash, whoever, Laba, and then a third guy, or if Cooley's there with those two guys, if you really can get deeper in that on that second line, great. I just feel like I understand the cap's going up, but you're not suddenly producing 10 great new players that are going to be free agents or available on the trade market. You got to go with what you can go with, and if they can replenish their prospect pool at the high end with the return that they'll get from trading Trocheck, if they decide that, and you can squeeze out a young player that you can drop into that middle six along with it, I think you got to do that, because I think that's the reason you get a JT Miller. He can he fills a lot of spots for you. So I feel like they can compete. They have some other issues. I think anything in their second and third pair on D could use a lot of work too. But we can talk about that another time.
This is fun. This is fun kicking it around because it's got you moving. And when we're talking about some pieces, like these things coming up with these lines, this is assuming everybody's thriving, right? That's how it works. So if we're gonna say Gabe Perreault's on your top line or Alexi Lafreniere's on your top line, that's going to be them thriving. So if they're not thriving, they're not going to be in that position. So this is like, but think about it. While you guys are saying it, you go, let's say Mika, Gabe, and Laf are a first line, and that's what you go next year. Let's skip down the line 3. If you can have like a Laba, if you can go like a Laba, Cooley, Cartier, some sort of like
that's a good third line.
Yeah, that's a good third line. So that would leave like a line 2 of JT, and then there's a lot of question marks on his wings. Could you go like JT? You could go. I have not said Vinny Trocheck's name yet. Where does he fall into this mix? Like I don't think it's that far off for me. Then you move to that fourth line, dude. You just need guys who understand how to play fourth line. Like it's not that hard. Yeah. Like it's that you got to get guys who understand what their job is and go out there and execute it. So yeah, it's fun kicking it around like that. I don't think they're all that far off. They certainly got to be able to generate more next year than they do this year. And the way they're kind of down the stretch, it feels like they are in some ways. So yeah, no, it's fun kicking that stuff around.
2 quick things. Just looking at stats since March 1st. JT has 14 points in his last 15 games. Adam Fox, 24 in the last 20. Mika, 23 in the last 20. Lafreniere, 22 in the last 20. These guys are producing some of these guys over a point per game, around a point per game. Like that's a 6 week stretch right there. But the one thing that gets kind of lost on this year, and it's credit to Vinny Trocheck too. And every team goes through injuries, but Trocheck gets hurt in that second game in Buffalo. And he misses 14 games. Second game of the season, he misses the next 14. The Rangers had that rough stretch where they can't score goals. We talk about the balance in the top 6. Gabe Perreault's not really up yet. That's where things kind of got lost. Like, that Trocheck injury, I think, turned out to be much bigger than maybe we thought it was at the time. Like, obviously Fox gets hurt. Shesterkin gets hurt later on in the year. But the way the year just started, because they were missing Vinny, and the negativity around the team in the first month or so, like that can spiral into a full season. No, like I feel like that Trocheck injury kind of gets lost in the shuffle of everything that's gone on this year. Because that was our conversation. It's the Rangers have no balance in their forward group. That's why they're not scoring.
Yeah, I mean those early season injuries, and we're gonna pivot to the Devils in a minute. But I know he only missed a couple weeks, but Jacob Markstrom's injury is huge for the because of when it happened. It's not a huge injury for his season, but you got to for the Rangers, you got a new coach, you got a new system, you got a veteran guy who is a guy who probably understands how to adapt to different systems because he has his whole career. If you miss that guy, like that's Vinny Trocheck's a glue guy. Like you take that guy out of there, and you got a lot of guys that are lost offensively or lost systematically, and you can't get it back. We always talk about, when you see these races in both conferences, say, oh, this point or that point, if you could just have this point, like if you just have this guy or that guy for the entire month of October or the entire first 2 months of the season, I'd love to go back and do kind of an analytical deep dive on that, like how teams who miss a guy like a Trocheck or, obviously a number one goalie is always huge, but you miss a key guy like that in the first month of the season, whether a team can recover from it. And you have to be a really, really good team to be able to overcome it. And they weren't that good at the beginning, and they never got out of it. And I'm with you. I think those things get a little bit lost in the shuffle sometimes when the season looks this bad, but that was a key one.
Yeah. Any other Ranger thoughts before we go into the Devils here? No? All right. I'm going to sneeze quick. So one of you guys do Devils and I'll go on mute.
All right. I'll start. Since Rupper and I have been texting back and forth about what we're hearing about Tom Fitzgerald's replacement, when we were talking on Monday night about the news that we heard an hour before, obviously Brendan Shanahan's name was on everybody's lips. It was something, not just that I certainly didn't hear it in any concrete way, but it certainly seemed like a natural fit. And now it's kind of everywhere, exploded. People talking about Shanny, people saying it could be a matter of time. My intel says that I don't know that that's going to be the case. I think the Devils are kind of following the lead of the Leafs. They're looking maybe for someone, I've heard conflicting things. Are they looking for like a data-oriented guy? They've already asked for, Pierre LeBrun reported, they've asked for permission from Florida to talk to Sonny Mehta, who's got his start in the NHL as an analyst with the Devils back about a decade ago. So he knows a lot of the people there, including the owners. I've heard John Chayka's name mentioned, former GM in Arizona, who's been kind of out of the league for a while. I've heard in terms of Devils alums, a little bit of different pivot, Jamie Langenbrunner, who was a Boston Bruins assistant GM. So I haven't heard a lot of Brendan Shanahan since I shouted his name a million times here on the show earlier this week, and I'm interested to see how that goes. And Rupper, you can kind of toss in what you've heard or what you think, but it is interesting to see that these two pretty prominent openings, Toronto and Jersey, and it seems like they might be kind of leaning towards just hiring one guy and possibly even an inexperienced guy, a first-time guy like a Sonny Mehta, even though he's got some experience and a couple of cup rings as an AGM in Florida. Brett Peterson's name's been out there with Nashville. So, it's a different kind of trend. You would have thought that whether it was Shanny or Mark Bergevin, who's been around the block plenty, would be guys that would get a lot of burn here with these jobs that are open so quickly. But it's starting to seem like it might be different than that. What do you got, Rupper?
Yeah, just that it sounds like there's an appetite, I think, in New Jersey for a one hire. So that's, again, like what you're saying, that's what I'm hearing. I don't know if that's concrete or what, but that's interesting because that would maybe take out some people out of the equation that we maybe said, well, okay, hockey ops, maybe that's not an option. You're going to have one encapsulating figure. But it's funny when you hear one hire, that could still stand true because you do have somebody on staff now as AGM in his role with Marty Brodeur. So that's not necessarily a second hire. It's a move within the organization. So that's something that I think it can certainly, and I believe is being kicked around as far as him being like a president of hockey ops and then maybe hiring a general manager. So, that's something where, it's interesting though, because you're hearing from all the teams that have this opening, you're hearing the analytics side, but then some of these other names that are coming up. I think it's good to cover all your bases, but I think they're very different situations from like a Toronto and New Jersey, and they're different circumstances as far as how they're going to probably fill roles, how many roles are available, probably more so in Toronto. So I don't know what the timeline is and all this, what you guys are thinking, but it's the sooner the better. You got draft preparation and all that good stuff coming up. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at. Just hearing it, it sounds like it might be a one-person hire in New Jersey.
So let's have this conversation now too, because you're starting to hear the rumblings online of what kind of guy the Devils should go after, right? The analytically driven guy, someone who uses that as a philosophy versus someone who uses that like as a tool. And where do you guys stand with, this whole analytics conversation? If the Devils should go with someone, who is very analytically driven versus the guy who just uses analytics, but not makes it their whole entire decision-making process. Where's the balance there?
I got a lot of thoughts on this, and I started off by saying I love metrics. I love utilizing them. I throw them out on the show a lot. I throw them out online a lot. I think it's a great tool, one of the great things we have, in addition to talking to the people we talk to in the league, talking to guys like Rupper who understand the game because they played it. It all plays a role in how non-players like me, whether in the media or you're a fan, understand the game. So I never would turn it down. And when you talk to people in the game, and Rupper, probably the same for you, and Jonny, same for you. You know lots of people in hockey now. It is a piece. It can be a big piece. It can be a small piece. I think we do a lot of armchair quarterbacking after the fact to assign responsibility for a certain trade or a certain signing or a certain success or a certain failure to the analytics department or to the GM, which I think is hilarious to me. Like, Sonny Maeda, everybody who knows him knows that he's a very sharp guy. I can't say for sure what he's responsible for in Florida and what he's not. I don't know if he could say that because he's part of a group of AGMs and who work under Bill Zito. And the GM means you make the final call. You distill all the information and you make that call, whether you're saying that you're using a lot of the analytics or you're using a lot of your scouts or you're using a lot of your own intel or you're using your gut, whatever. So I find it funny that whether it's Keith Pelly, the head of MLSE, coming out saying after they fired Brad Treliving that they're going in this analytical direction, or whether we're hearing behind the scenes Jersey is the same. Toronto has the biggest analytics department of any team in the league, led by a guy in Daryl Metcalf, who by all accounts does a fantastic job. And his stuff has been used, whether it was Kyle Dubas, who brought in Daryl and most of that department, that's all still there, or whether it was Brad Treliving or Brendan Shanahan, those things factored in. So it makes me smile a little bit to hear like, oh no, these guys are worthless because nobody's listening to them or whatever it is. And then in Jersey, Tyler Dello was there for a long time, is now in Carolina, could certainly be a candidate for the Devils GM job. Matt Cain was there for a long time, a guy who's worked in analytics spaces, public and private, for a long time. Really well-respected guys. So I don't understand where you get from having two of the bigger and more well-used analytics departments on these two teams to then their executives saying internally or publicly, we need more analytics. We need a guy who's going to focus on analytics in the main job. To me, that sounds like kind of like how people in tech say like, well, AI, you got to use it. Like, you got to explain to me why, because the human element of our game of hockey is huge. Relationships are huge. Whether you're the GM who's got to explain to a player that we might be trading you, or negotiations, or all these different things. There is such a human element, relationship-wise, feeling-wise, the emotion of the game on the ice, off the ice. It all plays a part to me. So to sort of boil it down in a chat GPT sort of way to like, we need more analytics in our decision making. Like, well, great. Could someone explain to me why you weren't doing it before with all these people you had? A, and B, what the difference is going to be, or C, how is that going to affect you? If Sonny Maeda comes in and he's the GM, great. He's got to deal with his ownership. If he doesn't have a president above him, he's got to deal with his AGMs and all the other decision-making parts that maybe he didn't do as much of in Florida. And he's got to deal with a room. He's got to deal with players. He's got to deal with agents, all this stuff that, it's a real juggling act, and it's not the easiest job. So I feel like whoever comes in for the Devils at GM, whoever comes in, the Leafs are secondary. Sorry, Vic. But whoever comes in for the Devils, we talked about it. This is a team that's pretty close to me. pretty close to competing again.
Yeah.
Are you going to take an analytic view? Sorry, Rupper, I'll give it to you over in a minute. Are you going to take this analytics forward view and say like, well, no, we got to shake it all up because this guy doesn't really fit a good metric profile, or this guy, his metrics are not so good with what we're doing, so we got to change some things up or get rid of that guy. You focus on that element of it, and I'm not so sure that you're overcorrecting for something that you don't need to correct for.
Oh, I thought you were gonna kick it over to me, John.
That's it. I'm done.
Arthur said he's gonna send it over to you. I was waiting for you.
No, that was well said. So the thing for me, it's like when you say it from that standpoint too, all those things you hit on were money, because any corporation has a strong analytics influence in it. Like you're talking the big time corporate. That's what NHL team is. Like it's a big piece of the puzzle, whether people want to admit it or not. It is not the only thing, but it is certainly part of the puzzle. And I guess that's the part I kind of get a chuckle on. I know this is a tri-state hockey pod, so we're not going to talk about the Leafs. That was what I got a chuckle about with the Keith Pelly press conference. It's like, you guys have the biggest analytics department in hockey. So like we're all of a sudden going to start paying attention to analytics like that. You have, you know what I mean? So, but here's the thing with analytics for me. It's like there's a chain of command in every hockey team. And so you're going to have the owners at the top. And that's why we've seen power struggles in the past. Do we have a president? Do we have a GM? Sometimes that's a little bit of this. It has nothing to do with analytics. It's just the pipeline to the ownership. And a lot of those things, it's managing relationships. You've got to be good at it. You have to be relational. And the thing for me that isn't always relational is this analytics, and that's it. At some point, that chain of command trickles down, and the analytics you want to get across and you want people to use and adapt and use as a resource is going to come across somebody that is hockey concept related person, whether that's a coach, whether that's a GM, assistant GM, or the players. At the end of the day, you have to have someone that can explain this. Show me how this concept, what can I do hockey concept wise to make sense? Like you have to be able to be very good at creating those relationships and explaining these things and being on the same page. Otherwise it's going to be this power struggle. So, that to me is where the biggest thing is that you can't just sit there and, like, for example, we did a breakdown the other day at NHL Network, and I use Sport Logic. We've talked about that before. And I was doing a breakdown on the Philadelphia Flyers and how they were on that 11-3-1 run, and they're in the playoff spot, third in the Metro. And I remember thinking back, all right, what angle do we want to do for this breakdown? I started thinking the last 2 years, they've been one of the best rush generating teams in the league. And they didn't really generate offense any other ways. So I remember that because I've done that before on them. So I'm like, all right, let's see where they're at this year, because they're in the playoff spot. So maybe they've gotten better in those other areas. So I looked, they haven't. They're still not good at generating offense off the cycle, off the forecheck. They have a lot of weakness as far as generating consistent offensive looks, and on the rush is actually down for them. So I'm like, so why are they in the playoff spot there, and why are they better now? So this is like how a hockey person has come around to using analytics, where I'm like, all right, let's dig into this a little bit. You start looking, goaltending's been huge. You got Vladar and Harrison have been lights out, and the things that they've done, they've gotten timely goals at the right time. And then you start asking, is this sustainable? Like, whatever. That's how this stuff works. But you can't just read the analytics and say, hey, we've been a good rush team, and then here's the numbers. We're not good on the forecheck. Go be better on the forecheck. Like, no, you need someone to know the personnel, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how to implement hockey systems that would do that, so that you take that knowledge and you gather it, and then you have to make sense of it and make somebody that makes hockey decisions believe in it and change the way your team plays. And that's something that you need a communicator. You know what I mean? And that's the most important part. You can get the smartest guy in the world. You put him in there. If he can't communicate that message to hockey players and find out a way to turn this into hockey actual value, then you got nothing, man. You got absolutely nothing.
Well, let me give you the example right now while we're talking about the Devils, Rupper. I'm just looking at Sport Logic while you're talking about it. The Devils, when it comes to even strength ozone dump-in attempts, they're last in the NHL since the Olympics. Like, so since they've, returned from the break, they are last. And then the dump-in recoveries, they're second to last. But then you look at the flip side of that, which is the controlled entries. In controlled entry attempts, they're third. In successful controlled entries, they're second. In controlled entry success percentage, they're second. So what does that tell you? The Devils, when they skate the puck over the blue line, they're one of the better teams at doing so. The Devils, when they try to dump it in or even do dump it in, they're not good at getting it back. So what do the Devils need to go out and find? Guys that can fucking make plays off the forecheck. Like, that's something that we talked about, why they struggle against Carolina so much. That came up 2 weeks ago, where Carolina is one of the best teams at recoveries. So if they're going against the Devils, who are one of the worst, obviously Carolina is probably going to come out on top a majority of those times. So when it comes to like finding the analytically driven GM, are you asking this guy to go find undervalued players who can then fix that issue? But in reality, it's also the coach is the one making the lineup decisions. You don't want the GM telling the coach who to play every night. Like, it's the GM's job to go get those players, and it's the coach's job to make the best of the situation that he has with said players. So, like, I think you almost want your coach to be more analytically driven than the GM, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's like a different conversation in that sense, but like,
your coach has to value it, and that's really important. He has to understand it, and there has to be a conversation. Like I'll use an example. So Mike Kelly, who we all know Mike Kelly, director of analytics and insights at SportLogic. I've known Mike since I've been done playing. He was actually a host on NHL Network when I first retired in 2015. We were up in Toronto and whatever. I've been friends with him for years, talking to him, and just I was one of the anti-analytics as much as anybody. And so I'm like, I was almost playing like devil's advocate with him all the time. Well, what about this? Like, so because what you just told me right there, yeah, no shit. Your teams like to carry the puck in possession in the offensive zone over the blue line. Like, yeah, that's hockey. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you're going to be
the Panthers.
Sometimes you're not going to be able to do that, and you have to have the right personnel to understand when the right time and all that stuff. So, Mike, for an example, I'm just saying, I think there's going to be some day where I think there's a ton of value in a guy like this, and there's others. I've known Valley for a long time, and the way Valley explains things is incredible too. Yeah. You need guys to be able to explain and to listen to the hockey concept side and work together and have this relationship kind of going back and forth and come up with good things. And the thing I'll say with Mike Kelly is he's transformed me. I use it every single day now, and it's a big driving force, me fact checking myself, driving like where I want to go and look at the eye test and all that stuff. But also a guy like Mike Kelly, he works with 31 of the 32 NHL teams. And even in the TV stuff he does here at NHL Network and the other, platforms he's at, he's working with former NHL players, and he does stuff on the side with current NHL players, working on their game too. So my point is, he's communicating with hockey players to understand this and want to use it moving forward. If you don't have a guy that can do that socially and effectively communicate, then there's no point on doing any of this. You know what I mean? Tune them out. It's just going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight that we see online all the time, because there's the online people that are like, take your numbers and shove it. I just want this and whatever. And that's we're moved past that now. We're never going to go back to that. But then on the same note, when Keith Pelly gets up there and says, we want this analytics, finally, we never have to listen to those dinosaurs again. Okay, well, good luck. That chain of command, transferring that, like, good luck going and talking to Jack Hughes and giving him a spreadsheet and saying, this is how your game has to change to get us to the next level. He's going to say, beat it.
Fuck off.
You know what I'm saying?
Fuck off, nerd.
Yeah, like it's not as easy as hiring the brightest guy in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I totally agree with you, Rupper. And also, it's Major League Baseball underwent these changes, whatever, in the last 15 years, where you have a lot of GMs who come from the analytics world, and you see the binders that the managers have now, and everybody's kind of talking about how the numbers have kind of, the data has kind of taken over baseball. Some people feel like it's taken the fun out of it, and if you want to do that for hockey, you're not your coach on the bench is not going to pull out a bunch of note cards and look for charts. Like, game just moves at a much different pace than baseball does or football does. And I think if you focus on making your head front office guy a more analytics forward guy, you are putting a lot more power in the hands of your coach. And that could be a good thing, because coaches are the ones that have to distill all this different stuff and make it sound palatable to players, like you were saying, Rupper. Yeah. And a lot of them are very good at it. Some of them are not as good at it. But they're the ones that are the entry point for all the players into turning these concepts into winning hockey. But if you give them more power and you're firing coaches at a rate of every couple of years, how organizationally, what sort of process are you creating for your organizational structure where you're changing your concepts and you're changing your power base every 2 or 3 years? If it's not working, then you've hired nobody to be your GM, essentially. And I've never worked in a corporate environment in my whole life, but I understand the way these things work. Processes and structure are the most important things to have. And what modern corporations try to do is make sure that the person at the top and the person at the bottom are all focused on the same things, them and everybody in between, so that you take a piece out, you put a new piece in, it doesn't matter. They're all aligned. And that's what we see, whether you have a new coach at the NHL level, you want to make sure the AHL guys are playing the same way. All these things that people talk about now that weren't necessarily talked about for a long time in hockey. And I feel like if you focus on doing this, getting a GM that's only experienced or exceptional in this one area, you are ceding power over the actual game to somebody else. And that makes no sense to me.
Yeah. Well said. Good conversation. Fun conversation to have. I do think we are kind of getting close to time, though, today. Just wanted to shout one thing. I did chat with Quinn Finley, great Islanders prospect for Wisconsin, who's playing in the national championship tomorrow night against Denver. Also caught up with EJ Emery and Malcolm Spence a little bit about the Rangers and stuff. And unfortunately, those two guys lost yesterday. But EJ and North Dakota had a tough game. None of those guys really played great for the most part. I thought Malcolm was pretty good for Michigan, though. Had a good chance to score, obviously kind of barreled over Hicks, and that was a scary moment of that game. But really excited for both of them. Obviously bright futures, great seasons this year in their respective schools. So it was cool to chat with them. That said, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Bet365. There are a few things more stressful than a close hockey game. One late back check can make all the difference between a chance at playoff glory or an early spring tea time. That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, is offering 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey fans have enough things to stress about. With 3-goal early payout, now your bets don't have to be one of them. Bet365, download the app today. You must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly, and we're going to take the Islanders in the money line tomorrow at plus 100. Must-win game. Got to imagine they come out feeling pretty good from that win against Toronto, and Pete DeBoer goes 2-0. So maybe they'll keep
Johnny,
me out of the
building.
building.
There, it goes automatically to plus 400. So
maybe they'll keep me out of the building. But great stuff today. Not sure what day we'll record yet next week. Maybe Monday or Tuesday. We'll figure that out. But thank you both. Thank you to our callers. Thank you to Vic, and we'll talk to you. Hopefully the Islanders get the win tomorrow, huh? Give us something fun to talk about next week.
Come on. I hope so.
Hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see some more Tri-State hockey content, don't forget to leave a like and comment on the video below, and also subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel.